Good morning. These are some great earrings that a friend of mine gave me. Aren't they fun? So I've been around my mom and dad a lot lately. My father's got vascular dementia, and my mother's getting lost in a city she's been in for decades, meeting me for lunch and stuff. And it's sad. But I also know that I could be looking at my future because I come from their DNA. In fact, I've noticed myself recently trying to reach for names of even people that I saw yesterday and struggling to pull up thoughts, memories, and I'm going, ooh, I don't like this, right? So I don't like that I'm going through this. I have the mind of Christ. This is not for me. I remember years ago when I first got in the church again, there were quite a few elderly people, and as they would come and approach me, their minds were sharp and they'd remember my name, and they, compared to where I'd come from, which was not the church, I didn't see that around me. And I was surprised because people, 30, 40 years younger than them were not that sharp. And it really stood out to me. So since I've been noticing some of my own thought patterns interrupted, I asked God, where's that coming from? This is not my inheritance. This is not my inheritance. I have the mind of Christ. What's the root of this thing? I'm glad I asked. I was reading a proverb a day for the last few years, and God has been speaking to me a lot for the last couple of days and reminding me of all the negative words I've said to some people that were extremely close to me, and I felt like I was saying, ask them to forgive me for speaking negative words to them, about them, and around them. And I'm like, well, I probably will have to be very intentional about that, but I am willing to do that, even if I have to call them individually. So I think willingness is key. I think God looks for a responsive heart. So I was reading Proverbs 28 yesterday, and I was reading in verse 1 that the guilty run when nobody's pursuing them. That's kind of what one of the versions says. Even though there's no one threatening them, the guilty run when no one's pursuing them. In other words, they're paranoid. So I have noticed this in some people that are close to me. There's a lot of suspicion, and I'm going, where's that coming from? I've heard things like, all people are crooks. And I'm going, no, not the people I hang out with. Interesting. So I looked up the word paranoia in the Webster Dictionary. And it means, it absolutely says that it's mental illness characterized by delusions of persecution, suspicion, distrust. It's a tendency, an inclination towards, being conspired against. So I looked up the Latin or Greek root at the bottom, and it comes from madness, from the word paranos or something. But the meaning of that root word is demented. The root word of paranoia is demented. So I looked up demented, and that's where dementia comes from. And I've been feeling guilty over negative words, which has shorting out my brain. It's unrepented, unconfessed sin, and attached to that were judgments I have made. There are a lot of people on the streets today in our political system that think that they're conspired against, and it's distorted thinking, it's twisted thinking, and I think it's coming from generational unconfessed sin. We grew up that way. It's okay to have this attitude, and to be offended at this and to reject that one, but it distorts our thinking until eventually we're demented too. So I've noticed in some of the emails on health that I read that things like Alzheimer's, it's early onset in their 30s and 40s, where it used to be a disease usually saw in the 80s and 90s. So I just thought this was interesting. And I've been meditating, chewing on this for a while, and I just want to look and encourage you to look for any places where you may need to ask God, other people, to forgive you, and be willing to forgive yourself for words you have said that, or things you have done that bring guilt. It's just a mental health, physical health healing for each of us. Ponder that. Have a great day.